Alrighty. Okay, so our purposes for today's seminar, we're going to continue to get to know each other. I don't think anybody's transitioned out from this group, which is nice, but we're still going to get to know each other a little bit more. You're going to get to know yourselves more. So that is going to be our goal for today. And then we're also going to learn how to use the College Board's Big Future search engine. So that's going to be your part one of what you're going to be doing today as far as your activity. And then at the very end, you're actually going to put what you learned from the college search or the search engine into your activity, which is your spreadsheet. Alrighty, so my check-in question for today, since we're still on the college path, on the college route, I want to know, what is one thing you think will be essential for your success in college? So what is one thing that you know now will definitely be very helpful, useful, essential for you to succeed once you're in college, whether that's support, whether that's time management? What do you think will be one thing beneficial and essential for your success? So I'll give everyone about 30 seconds and then I'll ask for volunteers. If I can get 2 volunteers, that would be great. If not, I will go ahead and call on 2 of you guys to respond to the question. So 30 seconds, what do you think will be something beneficial for your success in college? Alrighty, do I have any volunteers? No? All right, let's see. Who do I have here? Sol, what do you think is one thing that will be beneficial for your success in college?
Have like friends that have the same class with you.
Yeah, definitely. It will definitely nice to have, that in-person support, especially, in classes, especially in your first 2 years, once you're getting used to the paths and colleges and how to pick your classes and how to study efficiently once in a college, having some friends taking similar classes with you will definitely be very beneficial, especially if you miss class and you need the notes or you need a study group. So yes, definitely that's one thing. Alrighty. Anybody else want to answer, or I'll just call on one more person?
I'll go.
Awesome.
I think that time management is essential in college because the workload is heavier and you have more responsibilities. So just knowing how to manage your responsibilities is important.
Definitely. Time management is a very big thing. I would definitely say for me, when I went into college, having a planner was very beneficial. So if you guys aren't used to having a planner, maybe see which is going to start working for you, whether that's a physical planner, whether that's Google Calendar. Sometimes Google Calendar is better because some UCs or CSUs actually offer like for you to see other students' schedules. So instead of, being like, oh, what time works for you, you can look at their schedule and be like, hey, can we meet this and this day and time to study? So having a planner, having some sort of like you breaking down your time and when you have to be where is definitely really beneficial once you get to college, especially if you have like a job and are trying to do clubs. That'll definitely balance your time out. Alrighty, so thank you guys for that. Next thing is we're gonna do our feelings check. You guys know the drill. 1 or 2 feelings about how you're feeling this week, how you're feeling overall. Today was inauguration day, so we did welcome in a new president. So far, nothing too crazy has happened, thankfully. So I want to see how you guys are feeling overall in classes and things like that. So you guys have about 30 seconds or so to look at the list, and then I will go around in the order that I see you guys. Alrighty, let's see. Zuleka, how are you feeling?
I feel good since I don't have school today, so I don't have much to worry about. So yeah,
Awesome.
I feel fine.
Yeah. That's good. It's interesting how some of you guys don't have school on Wednesday. That's awesome. My sister has a minimum day on Wednesday, which is nice. Alrighty, Luna, how are you feeling today?
Feeling good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. Zira, like, how are you feeling?
I feel comfortable because I got to say a lot of stuff during coaching sessions.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you feel comfortable. Alrighty, Sol, how are you feeling today?
Glad, cause the like new presidency and stuff like that.
Definitely. For some of us, it's definitely more reassuring to have a more compassionate president in certain areas. So yes. Ava, how are you feeling?
I feel comfortable because we didn't have school on Monday, and then I didn't have school today, and then we don't have school next Monday. So I feel like the weeks are really short.
Interesting. That's awesome. There's no school next Monday. Is that just for you guys? I think that's just for you guys. Dang, I wish I had no school next Monday. Yeah, so some of you guys have a really short school week. That's pretty awesome. Alrighty, Ignacio, how are you feeling?
I feel comfortable because I have like no finals, so I get like free time.
Yeah, definitely. I know some of you guys finished up your terms, you're starting new classes. Most of you seem to like your new term classes. For some of you guys, it might be a little overwhelming, but you guys are getting a break from finals and starting over. It's a fresh start. So I'm glad for the most part, many of you guys seem pretty okay. It doesn't seem like many of you guys are feeling too overwhelmed, which is awesome. Try to, again, keep on task with everything. Don't try to procrastinate, especially for those of you who are starting a new term. It's really important to start off just with the head start and running. For me, let's see. I'm feeling kind of exhausted for sure. But I'm definitely really eager to see how this semester will be for me. So I did start classes this week. Thankfully, I don't have too many classes today. I only have 2 classes today. But so far, it's not too bad. I'm actually really enjoying the classes I have. Like I mentioned before, you get a lot of autonomy when you get to pick your college classes, but sometimes the college classes that are offered might not be classes that intrigue you, that you just kind of have to take for your major. But I'm really excited to take classes this semester in ethnic studies and Chicanx studies. It's so interesting to learn more about just kind of history with my culture, with people in the same background as me, things like that. So, alrighty. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to do a quick review of what we discussed last week. It's going to be a quick kind of refresher, and then I'm going to go into the instructions for our activity this week. So if you remember, or if you don't remember, the first term that we talked about last week was college match. And this is more on the school side perspective of applications. How does the school feel you will be a good match for their school once you come in? And college match really depended on 2 key variables, which were your GPA, your test scores. Now I did mention test scores might be a little iffy right now because we don't know how test scores are going to be received during your application year, but GPA will definitely be a very important factor for you to see how well you're going to be a match at a certain schools you're applying to. So we did mention this bell curve, and mentioning this bell curve, we talked about 3 key terms, which were safety, target, and reach schools. Now you're going to see those 3 terms again today. If you've opened your spreadsheet, you probably have seen them at the bottom of your spreadsheet. Basically, safety schools means you have like a 75% to 100% chance of getting accepted. Your GPA is right at the like average or higher than the average, and there's really no chance of you getting rejected to that school. Target schools where your GPA is right on the average. It might be a little higher, it might be a little lower. Maybe your test scores kind of are on the lower side if test scores are a thing. So you have a pretty good chance of getting accepted, but it's not as safe as a safety school. It's not kind of like, you're going to get accepted. You might have a chance that you might not. Reach schools is in the name. You're reaching for them. Your GPA will definitely be maybe a little bit lower or quite a bit lower than the average GPA of the school you're applying to. You might need to rely on other factors like letters of recommendation or your personal statements. That means you still have a chance, but your chance is going to be a little lower than your target and your safety schools. So that was safety, target, and reach schools. Now this bell curve shows, a lot of the schools do put kind of a bell curve or like a little scattergram of where most of their students fall when they get accepted. If you want to see what your chances of getting accepted are, you want to make sure you fall in the 50% range or on the top of the bell curve or right where all the students are gathered together that are getting accepted. If you want your best chance of getting accepted somewhere, or to see what your best chance of getting accepted, it will be right in the 50%. That's the average. So that is college match. The second term that we talked about was college fit. So for college fit, this was the more student perspective of applications. You wanted to see how these colleges fit to the needs, to the desires, to the preferences that you're looking for. Obviously, when we did this, we talked about the would you rather activity, which talked about, you're realizing what you want in a college, what you don't want, what you would prefer, and which one you wouldn't. So some things that were talked about for college fit, you might want to consider academics. Does it have your major? Is there tutoring, like extra tutoring that you might need or support you might need once you're there? For social, we were talking about clubs and extracurriculars. Is there a grief like? Is there professional clubs that you can go in to build up your resume? Is there student government? Things like that. For career, we did mention, you're not going to look too far ahead into your future, but we do want to make sure, what is the graduation rate like? How many students come out with a job once they graduate? Is there resources to getting a job even during college and once you graduate, things like that. Financial, I mentioned, was probably going to be the most important fit area for first-gen students and students that are not going to get a lot of financial support from their parents or their families. Financial might be important for you to consider how expensive is the school? Is most of your financial aid going to get met to cover that expense? How much are you going to be paying out of pocket? Other areas that we talked about that were for college fit would be like the location of the school, what's around it, is it busy and populated, how big is the school, things like that. So that was college match and college fit. And a quick refresher, is there any questions that I can answer about any of those two terms or anything you would like me to review really quickly? Okay, awesome. Alrighty, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna actually share my screen. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you guys the big future college board search. I'm gonna send that link to you right now in the chat so you can open it and go along with me. Many of you guys have probably already seen this search. Your counselors might have sent it to you. Your teachers might have asked you to open it and use it. We're gonna go over it together as a team so you can start looking at which colleges fit your preferences and your match, like your GPA or admission rates and stuff like that. And then that way you can narrow which schools you're thinking of applying to. So the link has been set in the chat. I'm gonna start sharing my screen now so you can see it and we can go through it together. Alrighty, so this is the big future college search. College Board, is a really important search engine when it comes to learning about college, getting ready for college. They are in charge of the SATs, which, just came out with a really big announcement that SAT tests as far as like the specific subject tests will no longer be given, and that tests with the essay are no longer going to be given either. I can go into more detail about that later, but that's a really big change and College Board handles that. So this is kind of the website where you would go to find anything and everything about college. With that being said, they do offer a college search. And again, many of you guys probably have opened this or seen it or have been guided towards it. What we're going to do is we're going to go through the filters here on the left side so you can start narrowing down your options of what you want, what you don't want. Because as you can see here, there is 3,691 college options for you. And I'm pretty sure you don't want all 3,000 to go through to see which ones you're preferring. Maybe some of you guys have a list of, what colleges you're already looking into. This will just kind of reaffirm you, make sure it has everything you're looking for. And maybe there will be colleges that pop up that will surprise you and you would want to look into. That's what we're going to do today. So going into the filters, these first 5 filters are going to be your main filters to go through as far as narrowing your options, which is test scores, type of school, location, campus, and majors. So when we click into test scores, here just kind of shows the test scores and selectivity range of the schools you're looking into. Test scores, I would recommend to leave it alone because, again, we don't know what the SAT requirement will look like for you guys or the ACT requirement will look like. So just leave it alone. That will be kind of like a last thing to look into once we get more information about your application year. If you are looking into this section, you can go into the selectivity. This kind of just means how selective do you want the schools to be? How competitive do you want the schools that you in your search that you want to be, and it shows like admissions rate. So if you want a pretty high admissions rate, if you want a pretty good chance of getting in, you can pick very selective or somewhat selective. If you want to be and see some of the most competitive schools, you can put most selective. For type of schools, this just kind of goes into characteristics of what the schools look like. So do you want a 2-year or 4-year, public or private? There is a third option for profit. I would definitely recommend not to check this box, just because Audi and I were discussing that for-profit schools, it's in the name, they're there to kind of make money off of their students. So most likely than not, they're not going to really offer you the resources and skills and tools that are going to be beneficial for your success. So we definitely say don't check that box. I don't believe that there's actually that many for-profit schools out there, but just leave that one alone. Make sure you're picking between public and private. For school size, if you're looking into schools like CSUs and UCs and want those to pop up into your list, you will have to pick large because CSUs and UCs do have around 15,000 students or more. For example, UC Berkeley has around 26 to 28,000 students on their campus. So if you're looking into those and don't want those to disappear from your list, large would be the box you check off. Single sex or co-ed, you can leave this alone if you don't have a preference. If you do have a preference, like you want to go to an all-guys school or an all-girls school, that's up to you. You can check that off. If you don't have a preference, you can leave it blank. For religious affiliation, definitely recommend to leave that blank. Most schools don't have a religious affiliation, and unless you want to know you want to go to a certain religious school, you can leave that blank, just so your options could come up and that's not affected by it. Location, this is how far, how close you want the school options to be of where you're living. If you don't want them to be that close to where you're living, all you have to do is select how many miles you want them from your zip code. So many of you guys know your zip code. I think Bay Area is like 94720. I think that's like the YMCA zip code. You can put that as kind of a reference, and then you could just put how many miles you want it to be away from that. If you want it to be a little bit closer, 20. If you want to be quite farther away, you can pick 50 or to 100. Another way you can do it is if you only want to see state schools, so you don't want to go outside of the state, you can pick California here, just so you can see schools in California. You can also pick a different region. I do not know what region we're in. I did not take geography, but I can look it up for you if you would like me to. So if you want to stick to a certain region. If you're thinking about international schools, you can also do that as well. I don't think many of you guys are. Many of you guys might think of like studying abroad, but that's like a whole separate thing. So that's location. Campus and housing. This is kind of the outside factors of your college. So where do you want your college to be? So there's setting. So let's see, who have I not called on yet? Ignacio, what do you think rural means?
Like wilderness. That's just like a random guess.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, based on the picture, you can kind of see trees. You're not really seeing like homes and things. So if you want a school that's rural, that basically means you kind of want it on the outskirts of town. You really don't want it in a busy and populated city, and that's your preference. You can pick rural. If you're thinking more like you want to be in a busy and populated city, and that's kind of key for you, you can pick urban. If you want a mixture of both, you can pick suburban. That means, you know, there's not too much around, but there's definitely things to get you by. There's different entertainment places and such. You can also leave this blank if you don't really have a preference. If you do, you can check off which one it is. But for the most part, I would definitely say leave these blank, just because the more selective you get, the lower your options get, just because of several reasons. Maybe the school stats aren't as updated anymore, or things are constantly changing, so they haven't been constantly updating. So I would definitely say, for the most part, leave these blank. So for example, cars for freshmen, unless you know you're going to be commuting, leave that blank. As far as students living on campus or commuting, you can leave that blank as well, unless you know that's really going to affect your success. One thing that you guys might want to look into maybe is like guaranteed housing for freshmen when they're coming in. You know, you want to make sure you have a place to live if you're living on campus. You could definitely click that off. As far as guaranteed housing for all 4 years, I will caution you to not pick this. I know the security is nice, but not a lot of universities do offer guaranteed housing for all 4 years. For example, UC Berkeley does not offer guaranteed housing for all 4 years, and I know a lot of UCs don't. So I would definitely say if you're looking for guaranteed housing for at least a first year, you can pick this one, and your list won't narrow down too much. Special housing options, I don't think it's going to affect you guys. Maybe the only thing that can affect you guys is if you don't want to live in co-ed dorms, because co-ed dorms are a thing. Once you get to universities, you will be living co-ed. Your bathrooms will be co-ed, unless there's like an all girls or an all guys floors. If you guys don't feel comfortable with that, then you can pick that. Most universities do have like an all guys or an all girls dorm, so that's a possibility. But you can also leave this blank and just kind of do your own research to see your range of options. Alrighty, so for majors and learning environment, this will probably be like the most key one if you know what kind of career you want to go into and what you're looking at. So if you know your specific major, you can just enter your major here. You can enter like a keyword, like if you know you want to go into psychology, just enter psychology. If you know you want to go into business, just enter business. If you don't really know what major you want to go into, but have an idea of what area you want to go into, you can pick a field of study, and then these specific areas come in. So arts and humanities is just kind of the general majors. So for example, if you're thinking of English, psych, socio, or something along those lines, anything that's taught in classes like history, things like that, that would be in arts and humanities. Business, pretty straightforward if you want to go into business but don't have a specific business path. Health and medicine, if you're thinking about going into health related paths. Public and social services would have to do with a lot of like ethnic studies, public policy, political science, things like that. And then science, math, and tech, if that's what you want to go into, but don't know what yet, you can pick those. Study options, for the most part, you can leave this blank unless there's something you know you really, really want. For example, if you want to go into ROTC, or you know you want that school to have study abroad because at least 1 year you want to go study in a different country, you can pick those. Extended class availability, I would definitely say this, just leave this blank. I know, for example, not a lot of universities and colleges offer weekend classes. It's just not a thing, unfortunately. But a lot of classes do change, you know, how many classes they have in the morning and the evening, but that changes routinely. So that might not be updated. So just leave that blank. Alrighty, so those are the first 5 main categories. Is there any questions that I can answer based on what you guys have seen so far? Let me just go quickly. Okay. Alrighty, so the next 5, I would definitely say leave them blank, just because they make your searches really, really narrow at this point. And some schools might be excluded just because, again, it might not be updated. Maybe they don't include like a varsity sport or certain things. So just leave them blank. Options will come up. If you want to do more research into them, you can, and you will be doing them this week. So for the most part, you can leave these next 5 sections blank, but I am going to show them to you guys. So sports and activities, unless you really know you want to go into a sport or you really know you want to do a certain activity, you can leave this blank. There are things here though, like if you want to make sure you want to join Greek life and they have Greek life, or you want to be in a certain activity, you can click that. Academic credit, you can mostly leave this blank for the most part. GED is not going to apply to you. CLEP is not going to apply to you. AP, I know you guys are taking AP credits, and you guys definitely want to make sure you get credit for like the exams you pass. I'll let you know now that all UCs and CSUs accept AP credit. If you're going to click this and want to make sure you don't filter out certain results, it would just be like, for example, if you're looking into private schools and want to see if they take AP credit, but it might filter it out too, just because private schools are really selective about what AP credits they will take. And I'll show you guys that in a little bit. So I would definitely just say, just leave this blank and kind of do that research on the side once your options come up. Transfer credit, UCs and CSUs accept transfer credit. There's no harm in that. So you can leave that blank if you're looking at that area. If you're looking at private schools though, and which private schools accept transfer credit, you can pick that. Again, transfer credit though is really tricky with private schools. They're really selective about what credit and what credit they will not take from a community college. So we can also do research on that separately if you want to make sure you keep your options pretty open and you're not filtering out something you probably didn't want filtered out. Pain, I know this is probably important as far as financial, but I would definitely say leave this blank, just because you guys haven't filled out your FAFSA yet. You don't know your EFC yet. So you probably don't know what range is going to be met for financial aid or where your tuition is going to be. So leave this blank. It'll show you how much tuition, once your schools come up, it'll show you how much tuition is there, and we'll go through that. So leave this blank for now, just so you don't narrow down your options. Maybe something that will be important is like, do they have work study? So am I going to be able to work through my financial aid, which for example, I'm doing. I do work from my financial aid from the Y Scholars program. Y Scholars is my work study job, so that's nice. And then another thing that might be important is like, does that school offer college waivers or college fee apps waivers? Because those do start adding up if you are paying out of pocket. As far as additional support programs, you can also leave this pretty much blank, just because it might filter out certain schools that you didn't want filtered out. But if there is something you see here that you want to make sure is there, because you might find it essential for your success, you can click it. So for example, some things that I might see you guys click is like services for low income students and services for minority students. Diversity, for the most part, you can also leave blank, unless you also know it's going to be really important for your success. I would say though, leave it blank just because its diversity rates are constantly changing for schools. Sometimes they accept more diversity, sometimes they accept less, and it's really not known until they come out right before your application process with like a overview of their diversity rate. So you can pretty much leave this blank and see once your school pops up what diversity rates are like at that school. Alrighty, is there any questions that I can answer about the filters as far as like we've gone through them? Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, awesome. Alrighty, so what we're gonna do now is you guys have a link. I want you guys, if you guys haven't done so already, to open up this link and actually use the search to pop up some schools, to look which schools you'll be interested in. So for example, if I do this really quickly, for example, maybe I want to see very selective schools. I want them to be a 4-year and I want them to be public schools. So with those just 3 filters, it already kind of narrowed down my list to 49. It shows me which of them are some of the most selective schools to get into. So for example, let me see. Let me just say that I'm looking into like UC Davis. So this comes up on my search. I think, this is a pretty good option. I go into UC Davis. Give me a second. It's loading. Do you have a question in the chat? Yeah, sometimes your list will be narrowed down so much because of like the filters. Maybe try taking one out that you can compromise on, or that's not too important to you, and maybe your list will get bigger. But yes, based on how many filters you choose, it gets more selective and the list goes down even more. So for example, I got 49 results on mine because I wasn't too selective, but I knew what I wanted. So I pick UC Davis. Once you see your schools and you see which one interests you, you'll click on that school. It'll give you some facts about it as far as like application deadline, how big the school is. They have 30,000 students, and I guarantee you most UCs do have around that amount of students at their schools, unless it's like a smaller UC. They have the graduation rate. However, I would definitely say don't look at this one just because it is a graduation rate within 6 years. And our goal obviously is to make sure you guys are kind of sticking to like the most average path as far as like saving you money, so you don't have to stay in an extra year. We want to make sure, unless you're financially able to do so, that you can graduate as early as you can, so you're not taking out too much in loans or out of pocket. And I will show you guys where you can get a graduation rate within 4 years. Other things that are on this site will give you like deadlines. It gives you which majors are highly respected there. Let's see, it gives you more information about campus. So if you wanted to know the diversity rates, it'll show you the diversity rates here. As far as applying, it shows you, what SAT and ACT scores you might need as far as like getting accepted. GPA is here, but I would definitely say just to look up the GPA for the schools once you narrow down your options, because sometimes it doesn't give you like a really accurate list or even like an understandable list of what your average GPA would be. And then the last section here is paying. So it does show you how much it's going to cost to live on campus, off campus, without financial aid yet. So this is kind of just showing you the overall cost. Alrighty, so, sorry. Suleika, do you mean like the filters or the options I just went through?
No, when you were on like go back to all glances, I think you were on at the
Okay,
glance.
let me see. It's loading. Yeah, my computer's really slow. Give it a second. Oops. So let me just quickly do what I did really quickly. Very selective type of school. Oops. 4-year public. So I'm not sure which one you were looking at. Do you see it? I don't know if you see it.
Oh, so when you like click on a random school.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Let me go just like right here. Yeah, so this at a glance was kind of like the tabs that I just went to. So it shows you like the different factors there.
But the options that show up on the left, the right side, are those options like the other options like you chose from, like the other.
Yeah, these options on the right side are like options that are probably in like the same like state. Like so for example, I picked an Illinois school,
Okay.
so they're often from the same state. They're like kind of like the suggested, when you go onto like a site and they're like, oh, you saw this is suggested. It's kind of like that as well. So if you want to look into those two as well, that's fine. Alrighty, any other questions that I can answer? Let me just make sure there's no other questions. Awesome. Alrighty, so most of you guys have done the search already. If you haven't done the search, I'll give you guys like about the next 5 minutes to go through it, look at the schools. Once you get your list, look at the schools and start seeing which ones start interesting you. Once you at least, pick 3 that, you're the most interested in so far, what you're going to do is that spreadsheet that I was talking about earlier, you're going to go back to the spreadsheet and you're going to start entering the information based on where they fall. So like I mentioned, Reach, Target, and Safety School was going to come back because on this spreadsheet at the bottom, it has Reach 1, 2, 3, Target 1, 2, 3, and Safety 1, 2, 3. You're going to be filling out 9 schools in total. This week, you only need to fill out 3, and that's why I say 3. You only need to fill out 3, whichever 3 you want to fill out. It's up to you. But like, for example, let's say I did pick UC Davis and that's the school that I want to go to. And maybe my GPA is right there on the average GPA once I looked it up and I know it's a target school. So I'll pick it as my target number 1. I'll enter the name. I'll enter all the information I need based on what is available from the search once I click on it. And then I will go on to my next school. If, for example, you can't find certain information, there's another site you can use, which I'll send the link into the chat in a little bit, which is College Raptor. This one doesn't give you a search. You can just like find the school and the information will come up. So you do need to kind of narrow down your options. So for example, like let's say I did want to look more into UC Davis for more information. I will pick UC Davis. And then more in-depth information will come here. So admissions, for example, it'll show you, give me a second. Like I mentioned, my internet's a little slow. It'll show you the SAT, ACT ranges. So where do you kind of need to be in order to get accepted? You got to be somewhere in this range. It'll show you the acceptance rate. It'll show you application fees for which schools you're applying to. Let me see. It'll give you the cost. It'll give you different stuff like academics, majors. It's just a more in-depth version here once you've already picked your schools. Another good thing about here is that it does show like the graduation rate based on 4 years. I think that's in academics, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it'll show you the graduation rate here for 4 years, 6 years, and 8 years. Obviously, try to stick to the 4-year graduation rate, see how many students actually graduate there. Retention rate's also really important. What this means is that 92% of students at UC Davis stay there after their freshman year. They liked it so much, they liked the resources that were there, and so they stayed there for after their freshman year. Alrighty, so is there any questions that I can answer so far? I think I had one in the chat. So you can do whichever 3 schools you want to finish. If you want to finish all of your Reach schools, you can do all of your Reach schools. So all 3 of your Reach schools. If you want to finish all Target schools, you can do that. If you want to do one of each, you can do that. You just need to finish 3 schools on your spreadsheet completely. Is there any other
Wait,
questions?
can I look at the spreadsheet again, like from
Yeah.
your screen?
Give me 1 second. Yes. So many of you guys might actually pop up with the sample, which shows like a sample of what it is, but this is what it looks like. Any other questions?
Wait, where do we write this? Because there's like a sample. And...
Yeah, so you'll go down at the tabs, like right here where it says sample, reach to, things like that. Once you look at the schools and you see the average GPA and compare it to what you know your GPA is, you'll put it based like on reach. So for example, maybe you have a little bit lower GPA that the school than the average school GPA that they have. You'll put it in reach because you know that school interests you, but you have a little bit of a lower GPA. If your GPA falls right in the middle, you put it there.
No, but like, what do we write? Where are we writing it? Because like, there's already things.
For this, so that's why you'll go to the different tabs. So where you're writing it is you'll write it in like the bar here. So for example, if I go to college name, you'll type in UC Davis right there. Give me a second. For some reason, my computer is just freezing up. Why isn't it going? Oh, that's because I can only comment in here. My bad. So in yours, you'll be able to edit. If you can't edit, let me know, but you should be able to edit.
Yeah. Just like erase the sample.
Yeah, no, the sample, you're going to go down to the bottom. So can you see where my cursor is, like my little mouse on the screen? Do you see where my mouse is at the bottom?
Yeah.
Okay, so these tabs is where you'll go and these are empty. So like, for example, maybe you're looking at your safety schools that you know you're going to get accepted to that school. That's where you're going to go and it's blank. You'll fill it out there.
Oh, tabs. Okay.
Yes, sorry about that. Alrighty, any other questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
How do we know if the school is like our safety school or our reach school? Like, how do we know?
Okay, yeah, definitely. So for safety schools, most safety schools, like if you're thinking about like a CC, that will probably be a safety school just because they don't really reject anyone unless there's extenuating circumstances. If you're looking into CSUs and UCs and want to see if it's a safety school, most CSUs, some CSUs are safety schools. What you have to look at is their average GPA. So for example, let's say like CSU SACS GPA is a 3.0 and yours is a 3.5. You're most likely than not getting accepted there. And I'm only telling you guys to look at GPA because again, SAT and ACT scores might be a little iffy. You can definitely write those down, but look at your GPA to kind of determine whether it's going to be safety, target, and reach. For target schools, if your GPA is a little bit lower, a little bit higher than their average GPA, then it can be a target school. Like you have a pretty good chance of getting in. So for example, if their GPA or the average GPA was a 3.5 and yours is like a 3.4 or 3.3 or maybe a 3.6, then it's a target school. There's a pretty good chance of you getting accepted. And then reach schools is where your GPA is probably significantly lower. It's probably like more than 0.3, 0.5 lower than the average GPA, and your chances of getting accepted are a little harder. And in each tab, there is like an explanation here. Like, for example, I just touched reach schools, and there's like an explanation at the top of like kind of how to guide you once you start getting your list. Awesome. Any?
How do we know like what the average GPA is? Do we just search it up?
Yeah, unfortunately, none of the two sites give you like a really good example of average GPA, so you could just look it up. So, for example, like for once I figure out I want to go to Davis, I could put UC Davis average GPA in the Google search, and it'll come up as your first option. Yeah, awesome. Alrighty, and then yes, it'll be your GPA overall of like the last 3 years. That's kind of what you're basing it on. For the most part, unless you know you're taking like quite a bit of AP classes your senior year or classes that'll earn you like an extra point for UCs and CSUs, which would be college classes or AP classes, your GPA that you have right now is a pretty good indicator of where you'll fall senior year. Alrighty, any other questions? Okay, awesome. So I will let you guys work on it now. Again, you guys will go into the college search like we did here, put in your filters, look at the list of schools that pop up, see which ones interest you, pick 3 for this week, and then start filling them out on your spreadsheet based on whether they're your reach or your target or your safety school. You don't have to do them in a specific order, just 3 of them need to be completely filled out. So you can do all targets, all safeties, or maybe one of each. However you want to do it, 3 of them need to be filled out completely. So you guys have about the next 15 minutes or so to work on it. If there's any questions, I'm here. I will stop sharing now. So, and then I'll open your guys' spreadsheets just to see how you guys are working on it. If you guys are having a little bit of trouble with Wi-Fi now, like working on Zoom and then having a dock open, you guys can turn your cameras off for a little bit, see if that helps your Wi-Fi kind of readjust itself. That's fine with me. Just please let me know that you will be turning all that off because you're having kind of issues with it. Alrighty. So there is a sample on the spreadsheet for you to kind of see what you need. Things you can leave blank on your sheet can be like the special programs part and general information, unless you know that you want a specific activity or sports or thing there at that academic school, you can leave that blank. Another common question that I got was like the second major. Why would you need to pick a second major? What this kind of means is like some schools, what they do is they will ask you to apply and they'll ask you for your first choice major and your second choice major. Because, for example, if you're applying to a really like recognized school, it's a really selective school, and on top of that, their major is a really well recognized major, then you might not get accepted into that major, but maybe you can get accepted into your second choice. If you don't have a second choice, you can leave that blank. Like if you know you want one specific thing to study, you can leave that blank. If you know that you're battling between 2 majors right now, definitely add that second major. Let me check if there's any questions. Let me see. So make sure, like, I don't mind if you're turning off your camera because your Wi-Fi is a little slow, but make sure you're letting me know. That way I can see. Eventually I'm going to call you guys all back up to turn your cameras on so we can debrief. But I know that sometimes running like Google and Zoom at the same time might conflict with that. Just please let me know that that's the case. And you can send me a private message for that. So for everyone who sent me a chat message, you are good to go with that. You can turn it off if it's like Wi-Fi issues coming up. When I tell you guys to come all back all together, though, I would like you guys to have your cameras on. Alrighty.